Are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in the process of essentially self-destructing because they are so obsessed with themselves? Yes, oh yes. When it was announced the next slate of projects for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle via Netflix, I remember thinking, are those going to be all that interesting? In particular, the one about polo, which is a very, very small niche audience. And it is obviously something that Harry is really, really passionate about. But the question is there an audience for it? Megan is also doing her cooking show that also has entertaining friendship and something else. Gardening. And the question is, are people going to really watch that? Because it's just a reflection of her own narcissism in many ways. Really, their self obsession is totally leading to their self destruction. And they seem to not be able to get out of this path and out of the way of themselves because is a way, of course, where you can share your passions and have them be very, very successful. But you also have to be careful that you're being realistic about things too. And this is where I think Harry and Meghan really, really struggle is that they don't know how to build a brand, they don't know how to build a company. And so they seem utterly directionless and rudderless all the time because anything that strikes their fancy, they kind of go in that direction rather than taking the time to really try and develop a strong core brand that's not related to the monarchy and maybe not super reflective on themselves. But I just don't think Harry and Meghan can do that. I think they are so self obsessed. At the end of the day, they will utterly self destruct. So we'll go into this today. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany. I provide you all compelling royal commentary about the latest news, sometimes the drama going on behind the scenes. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, that would be awesome. I also have two things I want to let you know about. One is an upcoming trip to the Christmas markets in Germany and the Czech Republic. I am so excited for that trip. It should be absolutely amazing and incredible. We'll be there right before Christmas. So if you want to get into that holiday spirit and check out some really, really cool Christmas markets, you can check out that trip. I also have a deal with Ana Lucia Diamonds. So if you like any of my jewelry, I will put a link down below as well. And if you use code ROYAL20, you will save 20%. So Prince Harry and Meghan Markle obviously this weekend went over to Florida for the Polo Cup finals in the United States because there was, let me say right now, a massive, massive audience waiting and watching the US Polo Cup finals. Look at all those people in the stands, guys. Just so many. This is one of the semifinal rounds. There's so many people interested in polo and so many people there cheering the teams on. Now, I bring this up because Harry is obviously going to do a polo show, a show about polo riders and horses and everything. I'm not exactly sure, but it sounded like he was just filming it over that finals weekend. And I looked at that whole thing and goes, is that really going to be all that beneficial to their Netflix deal at the end of the day? Because what interest is there in polo? Because polo seems like somewhat an interesting sport. Obviously, people are on the back of horses and they play with croquet mallet type things and they hit a ball and they do it on the back of a horse, which is obviously very, very challenging. And it's considered often the sport of kings. But obviously, there are a very few number of kings in the world. And so there are very few number of polo watchers. And so this idea of obviously taking a sport like polo and making a whole documentary around it, it could be a good idea or it could be sort of an epic wreck. And Harry obviously is very passionate about polo. He likes playing polo. So this very much fits in with his niche. But the question is there an audience for it? That's the question Harry and Meghan should always be asking themselves because essentially they are supposed to be content producers. And that is also what I do. I produce content and people like it, people watch it. Now, people don't watch everything. And yes, there's a smaller audience for things than there are for others. But generally, I try to create content that I think people will like and enjoy. I try to diversify my content. I have the Crown Report that I'm working on, and it will be sent out to various podcast platforms and it'll also reside here as well. And then I'll have a separate channel with just little splices of those episodes there so people can hear about different royal news if they're looking for it. And because there's not a sense always of all the royal news going on out there. And I just really want to try to especially bring the foreign royals to people's attention more because there's so much going on. We actually have 2 state visits this week, one next week, and the first couple of weeks of May. So we've got lots of tiaras going on, lots of gowns, and often that stuff never seems to hit the mainstream press in English. So I try to highlight it the best I can. And obviously this channel as well, I had a couple of other channels or ideas that I sort of tried in different ways, one with history, one with fashion. I got 7 subscribers with the fashion one, and 3 were myself, my mom, and my sister. So that one was, yeah, didn't do well. Didn't do well at all. And sometimes that happens because when you're creating content, yes, there's some people who have a really keen interest in something, but sometimes there's not, or the market's too saturated. There was actually a YouTube boot camp I was part of for a brief period of time. I really wish I hadn't have done that because it really didn't offer anything I didn't already know. But one of the things I noticed over time with is that some of the people, they had been doing this for years and years and could never get past 1,000 subscribers. And I would sit there and go, you know what? Sometimes your advice might be to them, like your real true advice would be, maybe you should let this go. That it's taking time away from your family and friends. It's not really going anywhere. Yes, maybe you have a passion for it, but maybe nobody else really wants to watch. And yes, at some point, if you're doing YouTube for 12 years, all of a sudden your channel might explode. But the likelihood of that is pretty minimal. So you have to sort of evaluate how people are consuming content and what content people want to produce. And I think Harry's obsession with himself and reflected in this case in Polo, it's maybe not necessarily the greatest idea because polo is a very elitist sport. Even owning horses, especially at the elite level, is very emblematic of like millionaires and billionaires. Millionaires and billionaires ride horses. Average Joes don't. I mean, a lot of people do have horses who are not multimillionaires and stuff like that, but it's a very different operation than those who run in the upper echelons of polo, where it's very elite. Like you can fly your horses different places. I would imagine that's a very expensive thing to do because you have to quarantine them and stuff like that. I was actually watching somebody and they were explaining how they put horses on airplanes, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this like so kind of freaked me out. And so I was like, that's so crazy that people, yes, they do that because obviously, you know, your horse and everything. But the idea for Harry and Meghan is that, well, so many people are interested in polo, not because there's a general interest, but because of Harry's interest and Meghan's interest in being seen with Harry at these events. That is, I think, their focus here. And that's why this was such a catastrophically bad idea, in my opinion. Yes, it could do very well. It could be very interesting. But so far, Harry and Meghan have really bungled anything that is not necessarily about themselves because they are too self obsessed to think outside the box or to not put themselves at the center of attention. We see this right here. So look at this shot. It's very interesting. Harry and another polo player looking at each other, but who's in focus in this shot? Why, it's Meghan. Meghan, who does not play polo, probably really knows not that much about polo. I mean, she probably knows more than me, to be honest, because her husband plays polo and she's actually watched polo. But why is she here? Why is she here with this? Because she doesn't need to be here because polo has absolutely nothing to do with her. And she's here though because she needs to be seen with the project because of course, if Meghan Markle is there, it must be about Meghan Markle and not really about the sport itself. And this is, I think, the Achilles heel and the massive mistake here already with this Netflix series, movie, whatever it's going to be, is that you're putting Meghan Markle front and center in some ways, a woman who does not play polo, doesn't probably know all that much to a certain extent about polo. This should be about polo players, not Harry and Meghan doing a fake charity match for Centiball and trying to raise money. That's not what this documentary should be about. But they can't do it unless it references themselves. And I think that's a key flaw in this whole scenario that they're trying to do, is that they're trying to make everything to a certain extent reflect on themselves when they really need to think of, okay, what does the audience want? And how do sometimes our interests align with that of an audience? And I just don't think the audience is here for this, especially because it seems to be not about polo, but about Harry playing polo. And yes, looking at some of the polo players who happen to be playing that weekend. Again, huge issue here. I mean, you even see this here as well. Here is Meghan, here's Delphina, and they're obviously the camera's following them. Ooh, what are they doing? I don't know, but neither one of them play polo. Their husbands play polo. So is this about the wives of polo or actually about polo? It's just unclear. And you also have here, it looks like Delphina she's not even wearing shoes at this point, and Meghan Markle's in her spike heels. And so it just looks even more silly. This looks very set up personally, I think, in my opinion. And so I'm just looking at this going, okay, so this whole documentary that's supposed to be about polo, I guess it really is just all about you. And this self obsession is not going to do them any favors in the long run as they continue to try to build their brand. Because I've said this before, and I think this is true, is that Harry and Meghan need to step out of themselves because I think that's the way their products will actually be successful. When they focus so much on themselves, I think it turns people off. It just turned me off. Like obviously the Heart of Invictus I thought was a hot mess. It didn't really have a concrete story. Harry, of course, led it at the beginning, sort of came back at the end. But I'm like, you should have let the stories of the soldiers talk. Harry, we didn't need to see you in your home going, yeah, I'm Harry. I got kids, I got a dog, and I started Invictus, and this whole thing about basically a self-congratulatory thing to himself about starting Invictus. I'm like, yeah, I don't think we really need that for this show. And when basically looking at the whole charade of the entire event, obviously Harry's team won. I think that was by design. I don't think this was like a real polo match in a lot of ways. I think was basically done just for content, which I think ruins the purpose of creating something. If you're faking the whole setup just to sell polo and then show some of the other polo things, but you're really like a lot of the focus ends up being on his charity polo event, which was totally a facade and fake. It loses so much in the process because it basically looks like the whole thing was faked simply to give Harry and Meghan an opportunity to raise money for charity so they can look good themselves and for Meghan to parade around in dresses. And so here we got her giving away one of the awards, and the spike heels are so tall and the area is so unstable because that's what happens when you're on grass and uneven surfaces that she's actually clinging to this woman's hand. And there's actually a picture I'll try to pull out later of her clinging to another woman's hand and Harry's as she's desperately trying to get down these stairs. But watch this here. So she gets up because she's the only one who's there. She's the only one who matters. And Harry's the only one who matters here. So you got to get the kiss. She's got to give him a lot of attention. And then she gets everybody around to pose with the trophy because of course this is about Meghan apparently. It's not really about the players or the sport or anything like that. It's about Meghan and showing off Meghan, which again is both self-obsessed on Harry's part and Meghan's part in some ways because I feel like it diminishes what everybody else is doing. And then we got the whole Cinnaball situation. So this is the director of that and she wants to pose next to Harry because here's the thing about this event. This event is supposed to be about raising money for Cinnaball, Harry's charity. It's on the background right there. So it makes sense that the director or the president of that organization is standing next to Harry. But Meghan can't let her stand next to Harry. So she has to usher her. I think tells her a couple of times, move over here, move over here. Because, of course, nobody else can stand next to Harry and get a picture. So then we have this whole awkward thing where Meghan could have just moved. Meghan could have just moved. But no, got super awkward. Super awkward. And just in case you guys are wondering, find it. I feel like she's sort of desperately clinging here to everyone because without all of this, she is about to fall over because, she's wearing the most ridiculous shoes in the world to this event. And because and then, again, it's all about then promoting Meghan. This is all about Meghan, how Meghan looks, rather than it being about polo, which is the whole point of their supposed documentary here in the future is supposed to be about polo. But what's interesting too is that Meghan is there and Meghan is the executive producer on this project, but Harry is not the executive producer on Meghan's cooking show. And so obviously Meghan has to be deeply involved in Harry's project, but Harry can't be deeply involved in Meghan's project, which again, I think damages their project and their image overall because this is really supposed to be about charity. It's supposed to be about raising money. It's supposed to be about polo, but no, it's not because it becomes about Meghan. And yes, the public and the media do fuel that, but she also knows it. And so again, I think that's going to immensely damage because she's too self-obsessed and Harry's too obsessed with pleasing her to do the right thing for this project and not include her in it. And we also see Harry's self-obsession reflected in his court case over security. Now, if you are unfamiliar, and I think most people are, but just in case, the whole case is over basically Prince Harry's ability to allegedly, because he wants to, hire Met police protection, which usually protects members of parliament or like high ranking ones and the royal family, hired them when him and his family are in the UK. And Met Police and Revic, which determines who gets this sort of government funded security, because that's what it is. And it's not for sale. It's not for sale. Revic determines who gets this. And obviously, it's seniority, a lot of different factors. And they said to Harry, no, you can't have this anymore. Not only that, you can't hire us because we're not for sale. And so Harry's been suing over this for a long time. And this lawsuit has always been frivolous, in my opinion. I'm so glad it got kicked back numerous times. And basically, at this point, Harry is going to have to file with the Court of Appeals, which apparently he will, to continue this court case. And the reason he shouldn't get the security is that he is not the heir. He's not the heir, and he's not a member of the heir's family anymore. So that is his brother and his children. That's not Harry anymore. Harry and his kids are technically, in this era, constitutionally irrelevant. They're constitutionally irrelevant. And so for Harry to continue pushing this, he looks kind of silly because actually, as time goes on, this would have happened anyways. Because Andrew's girls, Beatrice and Eugenie, used to get Met protection. They do not anymore. If they want any sort of security, they have to hire their own. Princess Anne does not get it full time. Prince Edward does not get it full time. They get it when they're on engagements, and they get it during big family events. And this is the same for all members of the family. Any member of the family that goes to like Trooping the Color, the Jubilee, the coronation, anything like that would have all been protected under that broader apparatus. And what happens over time with monarchies, and this is true across the board, it doesn't matter what country you are in, although the Middle Eastern work a little bit differently, they're more of a favoritism system. So basically, if you're the favorite, you kind of get to go up the ladder. If you're not, then sometimes you don't. But generally throughout Europe, it is a hierarchy. So at some point, if you are not in that immediate high line, you just sort of get bumped back as time goes on. You can ask the Duke of Gloucester, who I think was maybe born, I believe maybe like fifth in line to the throne. And now he's probably in the teens, maybe 20s. I don't know exactly where he is in line of succession now, but as more people have children, as they grow older and stuff, if you are not in that immediate family line, you just get knocked further down as time goes on. This is just an absolute truth. And so Harry, when he started suing over this, I'm just like, what are you doing? Because they were probably going to strip this from you anyways at some point, because you're not as important anymore. As George, Charlotte, and Louis all get older, the focus will shift to them anyways. The public interest will shift to them anyways. So Harry suing over this is really sort of just self-destructive, to be quite honest. And the judge sort of thought so as well. So this is from The Spectator, and I really did like this. And he said, concluded throughout the trial, that there is no other compelling reasons for an appeal to be heard. So Harry gave his case, he lost, and there's really no route going forward. Yet Harry is going to go forward. Why? Because he is self-obsessed, I think, with proving how quote unquote important he is, getting that Met security because his family can't go to the UK without it. I'm like, yeah, bud, they can. They absolutely 100% can. And yes, you might be chased by paparazzi from time to time, but that's sort of the life you chose. This is a thing too with Harry. He chose this life. He chose Mexit. He didn't think of the consequences because he was so self-obsessed with Meghan and their family and how important they were and how maligned they allegedly were that he led them to destruction in a lot of ways. Harry also apparently shared some of the information, confidential information of the court with an MP, which was kind of funny because Harry and Meghan told us time and time again, the only people who leak are the palace. The only people who leak are the palace. So obviously Harry's confidentiality could be called into question, but he's going to continue this lawsuit to the Court of Appeals. So I guess you deliver your initial argument before a court. The judge decides, then you can appeal to that judge again to review the case. The judge reviewed the case and goes like, no, you just don't have a case. And the thing is, Harry doesn't. He is so self-obsessed, he's willing to allow the UK resources to be wasted on this court case because he's too self-obsessed to see the truth of the situation, which is that he's not that important anymore. And I get it. That's hard. That's a difficult road to walk when all of a sudden you realize everything that you thought about your life was changed in some way. But this has always been the writing on the wall for Harry. This has always been the writing on the wall for him. And like I said, when it comes to Meghan, her real fault here is just her need to constantly be in the spotlight. And because of that, people just generally don't like her. I had an interesting thought conversation. I was thinking to myself, I was like, what is the Sussex Squad's true goal? Because if it's to make Meghan more popular, she's not. She sorts of dips up from time to time, but she's still very much unpopular. Is it to make the press apologize to her? I mean, I guess you could say that, but the press is not going to apologize to her. Is it to tell the whole world that everything they thought about Meghan Markle and the press was all wrong? Everyone was wrong and she's the perfect human being? Well, that's not really going to work either because Megan is too self-obsessed. And because of that, she sort of constantly leads herself to ruin. We saw this, of course, earlier when I showed you some of the pictures of the polo that somehow she is front and center there when she has really no business doing that. I think it'll damage the documentary if they have to focus too much on her because she shouldn't be the focus in the first place. She just shouldn't be the focus. And so if they put too much on her, then it's like, well, then what happened to the polo? The real reason we're all here is for the polo. And then you can also make inferences to that in Megan's recent launching of American Riviera Orchard, which is very much self-obsessed and not a great plan. We see this sort of in sort of the initial presentation of the possible, let's say, items she'll be selling, like this jam here. Obviously, you could say a decent presentation, but look, stickers coming off there. That's not so great. And so you look at this, and yes, it could be successful, but it also seems very, very self-indulgent. It's very, very self-indulgent. It's self-obsessed. I mean, even the writing has to be hers. And yes, it's sort of fancy, but the name's bad. It's too long. You can't read it very well. I mean, it's hard to even read it from here. Like you could maybe guess, but honestly, I don't think maybe except for Orchard, you would know for sure. Like it could say anything down there. The crest is messy. Like I'm looking at it from a distance now, and it's like I can see maybe an A, but that's about it. Like, lines around it, like a spider or something. I don't know. And so it's just unclear what this stands for because it's so stinking self-indulgent. I'm sure she designed the crest, she designed the writing. Well, we know she wrote it. And all these sorts of things, but it's not good. It's not good. And because she was allowed to dominate, I think so much of the creative process here, what you have already to start off with is a wounded brand that's just not going to do very well because at the core of it, it wasn't designed well from the jump. Because of that, that is all on Meghan, essentially. That's on Meghan, how Meghan created things. She also shoots herself in the foot by just giving this initial batch, this small number, to her most exclusive friends, leaving out, let's say, the rest of the world, or telling us already that she only has so many jars of jam. And we only had so far 2 people share it. I would imagine 50 were sent out. We should get 50 people, but if only so many are sharing it, they're maybe like, I don't know. So it creates a problem because Megan can't think beyond herself. She is so focused on herself and portraying her image and crafting her, very, very special image. I think she, in the process, loses herself and loses the audience because Harry and Meghan's great problem right now is their very diminished audience. People watch them to watch the train wreck. They don't watch them to watch them succeed. And because of that, you'll get some hate viewership, yes, but you won't get dedicated viewers. The viewer returns diminish time and time again because they don't have a brand. This is the truth about Harry and Meghan. There is no brand. The brand is whatever they're thinking at this particular moment. The brand is whatever they think the public will like. The brand is whatever they wake up that side of the bed in the morning and think, "Oh yes, we should do X." That is their brand. They don't have an overarching narrative yet. And I compare it to mine because this is the only brand really I've grown, so that's all I really got. But I think I had a clear vision. I want to talk about royals. I want to talk about all royals. I want to talk about things I didn't see elsewhere. I wanted the commentary to be compelling and interesting, and yet not going too far into any conspiracy theories or those sorts of things. I wanted to highlight history and some movies and television shows. And yes, I don't fulfill the whole vision now, but that's because I'm only one person. There's only so much I can do. But the vision was there. And because of that, I go guided by the vision. And it's not self-obsession. It's something I'm interested in and something I think I can speak on well. and I've been able to share and grow. And obviously, the audience came, which I'm so thankful for. Thank you. In reaction to having good content and interesting content. The question Harry and Meghan face is their content interesting and will people continue to watch or will they start to tune it out? That's a huge problem they have going forward. Will people start to tune them out? And I believe it's already happened. We've seen Harry's popularity take a massive, massive dump since he's gotten together with Meghan. Meghan's popularity has pulled down his for sure. She still remains largely in every poll more unpopular than he is. And because of that, I mean, what do they have going forward? And the answer to, I think, their conundrum here is to get out of their own way, is to not be the center of every single stinking project. Actually, I think the projects would be better if they almost were not seen at all in them. If they weren't seen at all in them, if you didn't even know it was done by Harry and Meghan, but was just done well, people tend to watch those sorts of things. But without that, I think Harry and Meghan, they got a tough road to climb. So, guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of Harry and Meghan's self-obsession. Can they fix themselves? So, guys, I will talk to you later. Thank you so much for watching, and we shall see you soon. Bye.